playoffs, but not in the style that I'm used to, nor in the style that I usually do. Usually, when I come on here and I jump on the camera and I talk to you guys, I talk about the game, the goals, things like that. There wasn't a video a couple days ago because flare-up happened. I'm still going through it, so I might not be as extravagant with my movements. Yeah, I kind of was going through it on the first game as well of this series. So, apologies there. But we got REFS stuff going on, and that's what I want to touch on in this video, because last game, as well as this game, had some stupid stuff going on. I'm going to cover the last game real quick, just to give a bit of a basis as to what I'm working with. There was a high stick against one of the Canucks players that was done by McDavid. That high stick drew blood. There was no call. And this is a play, which the NHL made a rule recently, that is reviewable, because there was blood. It could be a 4-minute double minor. But in this scenario, they didn't even look at it. It was just null and void. We're playing on. Along with that, there were other situations where the Oilers would get into positions where they very much got away with some stuff. The Canucks did as well, but there weren't as many dire situations that the Canucks got away with. And that's what got me thinking on the idea of following the refs for this game. So that's exactly what I did. And let me tell you, I'm both not surprised and not thrilled. There's a trip. It's a really good call. Edmonton gets the benefit, and they go on to score. And then there was a penalty against Edmonton in which Draisaitl gave a hit to Lindholm for the Canucks. And Lindholm seemed to be trying out for the Olympics in professional diving, because he got hit like it looked light. It was a bit of a soft shove, and he just collapses. He got shot, I guess. He goes down to the ice. He draws the call. It results in a goal. So keep that in mind. That's one goal on a call that probably shouldn't have happened, or at the very least could have happened, but also led to embellishment. Because it was a clean hit. I don't know what to tell you. It was a very clean hit. It wasn't too high. Lindholm just dropped like a sack of bricks. Getting into the missed calls, possible interference miss that would put Edmonton on the penalty kill. Missed cross-checks, plural, that would have put Vancouver on the penalty kill. Keep that in mind. Slewfoot miss that would have put Vancouver on the penalty kill. Missed cross-checks that would have put Edmonton on the penalty kill, but the ref wasn't really looking. I don't know what the other ref was doing. He was off camera. But there was no call on it, so I can only imagine the rest weren't looking. It's hard to say, though. Big one, Shelovs grabs the stick of Ryan, which, by the way, it's called holding. You're not supposed to do that. He got away with it. Possibly a missed high stick that would have led to a Vancouver penalty kill. However, I say that with a grain of salt because the stick that hit Ryan could have been one of the other Oilers. And I couldn't see enough detail to say whichever case it was. I have no idea. It was too close to tell. I'm not going to complain too much about that one. Heroic penalty following what kind of could have been a goal. The way that you see whether or not a goal has been scored is you have to definitively prove that the puck crossed the goal line. Now, having seen the replays, I cannot definitively prove through my own logic and reason based on an individual camera angle that the puck crossed the line. I can't say that. Neither could the refs, and I imagine it's the same right that they're looking at each individual thing, angle, trying to see where the puck is. However, there were two different angles that I was looking at. One from the front end looking into the open glove, where the puck seemed to rest on the back meshing of the glove. You've got your glove. I don't have a glove on me, so I'm just going to use my hand. You've got a piece of meshing, piece of leather, piece of meshing, piece of leather, piece of meshing. And on this play, it would have been this piece of meshing flipped this way, going into the net this way, that I used to determine that I think this was a goal. The puck got stuck in that far meshing, and it went across the goal line. overhead, you can't see the puck, but you can see where the puck would have settled in the glove based on that other camera angle, and determined, yes, it was in. However, my reasoning might not work to their reasoning. I can't really make a solid argument other than that. Couple missed calls for retaliation could have been, it could have been incidental minors, like, between the two of them. I think actually that's called coincidental. I'm sorry. But either way, the calls were missed. Ekholm gets a penalty for slashing and breaking the stick across a Canucks chest, which he tried to claim the stick was broken, but even if that were the case, the way his hands was placed around the body of the Canucks player, it could have very well been hooking. Nurse commits cross-checking in kind of an odd situation. Like, okay, it's kind of cross-checking, but it's kind of not, because it seemed like Nurse had rested the stick on the back of a falling Canucks player. And with the fall, it kind of looked like Nurse was finishing a check, going down with the stick. Now, with that, I'd be upset because I don't think it's a penalty to ride the player down. But I do think that based on how the early game went, remember the missed cross-checks earlier in this game? Those were way nastier than this. No calls there. It was called on this one. And my understanding of maybe why this happened is because the refs were looking at the game and seeing that it was kind of getting a bit too far out of hand, and they had to do something. That I can possibly see, but they're the referees. They enforce the rules of the game. If you're not going to call it at the beginning of the game, don't start now. Zadorov pushes and then holds Kane into the Oilers bench, which you can't do. That's holding. However, there was a bench minor on the play as well. I'm not qualified to really talk about this one. I think it has to do with Kane holding the stick, being on the bench. He wasn't supposed to do that, but as far as I'm concerned, gravity was kind of holding him in place where he couldn't really release the stick. I have no idea. Either way, it's a 4-on-4 that gets killed off. There's a trip against Zadorov. He goes off to the bench. He's not thrilled about it. Missed hook and interference that went against Edmonton that would have led to an Vancouver Canucks power play. Cross-checking against Vancouver now. Same thing as before, consistency non-existent. And with all of that, the game ends basically the way that I would expect with all the stuff going on. If you're not going to police the game, the players will police it for you. There was a scrum at the end of the game. And let me jump back to the Lindholm dive that happened earlier in this game and mention that this is a player on a team where the head coach basically said, hey, I don't want to insinuate that any team's doing this, Edmonton, but I want to see a limited amount of diving. The refs need to crack down on diving. They need to figure that out, because I don't like diving. And both in this game as well as in the last game, there were a few times where the Canucks players definitely dove. And that's not to say Edmonton didn't have any divers as well. There were a couple Edmonton players that definitely took some diving lessons. That said, their head coach didn't call out the other team saying, hey, we need to crack down on diving. But all in all, that's not what did the Oilers in this game. What really got them was the other team's goaltender, who was Shilov's, by the way, the third stringer, who played an impeccable game, facing over 40 shots. And he stopped all but 3 of them. One of them happening with an empty net in the other end. So, some credit has to be given to the Vancouver Canucks, especially Silovs. However, looking at the goals that went in, there were 2 really not great calls that happened against the Oilers. That would have left Vancouver at 2 goals throughout this game. And from what I could tell, anything that Edmonton scored on seemed like a fair call. So, if things were looked at properly in this game, there's a good chance that at the very least, because I'm not an NHL referee, this game should have gone to overtime. It didn't. Oilers lose. That's how she be. Also, Skinner kind of didn't really look good either. 3 goals allowed in the first. But yeah, I think this will be a series. I'm going to try to cover the rest of the games. I'm hoping that the flare-up is settling down now. I just really wanted to cover the ref situation just because, quite frankly, it's hilarious. It's hilarious to me that we're in the playoffs, the biggest games of the year, and the refs are garbage. They are garbage. And I don't know how else to put it. So in the meantime, I'm going to go. So stay howling. Go for me, Yotes. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is kind of a different setup, and this is a different type of video, and this isn't exactly what I'm used to, so the quality might not be the greatest. I'm sorry. Also, I'm going through a bit, so it's going well. But, there's a few more games for me to redeem myself. So if you want to hit the subscribe button, you can check in and see if maybe I've gotten some improvements going on to the rest of the series. I'm really hoping that's the case. I'm hoping that I do better. Either way, I'll be back.